Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wanzo, and thank you for this opportunity to all of the distinguished guests here. I'm very proud to be among, I would say, former colleagues in the United Nations system, Ambassador Wu, Ambassador Kim, Jean Todt, and under the leadership of the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, for the achievement of the Agenda 2030. Of course, Alibaba has always been a wonderful partner into this, particularly, I would say, in education, with a big project on 10,000 principles that Alibaba and Jack Ma personally has led, the teachers and the way new technologies can bring quality of education. But also because I do believe that the interconnectedness, interdisciplinarity of the 17 development goals, at the end of the day, bogged down to what happens in the cities because of the, I would say, the obvious reasons of the challenges that cities in this particular case are confronting. Could we have the slides? How do I move the slides? I'm so sorry. Because I do believe, as it is shown here, that the urbanization nowadays, of course, is where, as I said, the challenges of the sustainable development will be played. And particularly, I just put a brief note, because it is also important from the point of view of education and culture, that the growth of the rapid growth of the cities, particularly in the developing countries, and the emergence of the megacities is posing, I would say, something special, and there will be a special need to look at the urbanization in the developing countries. Now, from the point of view of what UNESCO has been doing, and in my capacity as Director General of UNESCO, of course, I would like to speak about education and about culture. And I would just briefly point to the target number 4 of the Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is about strengthening the efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. You can imagine that I can give a specific lecture on this topic. I will not, but I would like just to mention here, and I think it's so relevant to this debate, because we have made an enormous effort for the first time in the sustainable development debate to introduce the importance of culture and heritage. And I think it is very relevant because we are speaking about a people-centered sustainable development. And if we speak about the people-centered sustainable development, the issues about identities, about culture, about histories, about heritage are so important and so relevant. During the years, we have adopted a specific recommendation of UNESCO on the historic urban landscapes, and we have tried to introduce into the debate about urban development the necessity particularly to protect urban cultural heritage. We have seen in the previous industrialization process how cultural heritage has been destroyed in order to build the modern cities of today. And now we have learned a lesson. And this lesson is that we have to modernize cities, but at the same time, we have to protect cultural heritage. And this morning, there was a debate also that this type of approach, when we reconcile modernity and the protection of heritage, is the right approach. Because on one side, it can bring jobs, tourism, but on the other side, it is, I would say, a very mobilizing resource of communities, of giving them pride and a sense of the future, of the past moving to the future when we see protection of their heritage. Now, I would like to come back to education. We have been trying to leverage the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, and which is about inclusive, equitable education and lifelong learning for all, with the Sustainable Development Goal 11. Because we know that speaking about cities, of course, we have to create the so-called hardware of the cities. but we have to have the software, we have to speak about the people, and we have to ensure that people that live in these cities have all the potential they need in order for them to pursue their careers, to make their jobs, to make a livable environment. And this is, of course, one of the ways is to build these educational opportunities. And particularly when we speak about cities, one thing comes into the forefront. It is about the lifelong learning. And we created a framework already before the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goal 15. We launched the UNESCO Learning Cities Network. And this Learning Cities Network was exactly to scale what we know is important for the cities. It is about promoting the policy dialogue. It is about creating some kind of a peer review. It is about the links between them. It is about partnerships. It is about developing the instruments in the cities in order to create this network of learning cities. So, what is the learning city for us? It is a learning city that promotes lifelong learning for all. I would say this concept of lifelong learning for all that for the first time was inscribed into goal number 4 of the Sustainable Development Agenda is very relevant to the city. Because if we want to put the dots together between the economic, social, and environmental, we really need that people learn all their lives. With the rapid change, fast-changing world today, people have to acquire constantly new skills. They have constantly to acquire new competencies in order to have the capacity to deal with these global challenges, be it as a workforce, being as a diversity, cultural diversity of the cities, so that the cities are the place where people live together. And that is why we thought that this lifelong learning and promoting the concept of learning cities is vital in order to have this transition to sustainable development. And I would like to mention something that I think this morning also was mentioned. Because if the most important, of course, is to have a broader global and national policy, and the role of the governments is of paramount important. But cities are there when this sustainable development and the strategies are going to be played. And that is why it needs a lot of commitment at the local level. And the sustainability will be built city by city, province by province, community by community. And this is where I think this concept of lifelong learning has to be integrated into national development and local strategies. So I'm very happy to say that it was here in Beijing in 2013 that the first such meeting, a conference of the international, we launched this program of the learning cities, and we launched the concept of the lifelong learning for all as a vector for equality, for social justice, inclusion, and cohesion was made. Beijing was the starting point. I'm very happy and grateful once again, both to the government of China and also the municipality of Beijing for this pioneering role. And then it was followed by 2 consecutive conferences. The network of this network of learning cities already comprises more than 200 members from 50 countries, which are very committed to this process. And I'm also would like to say that one of the biggest, I would like to say, supporters of this was the Republic of Korea. So in this conference, we kind of combine the commitment both of China and Korea around the issue of the learning cities and what education can bring to the urban development. It was the Institute, National Institute of Lifelong Learning Education of the Republic of Korea that was the biggest supporter of this initiative, and then we launched, I would say, a groundbreaking publication unlocking the potential of urban communities, and we studied the case studies of 12 learning cities in order to spread them along the other also cities. Nowadays, these case studies were global. We took cities from all over the world to study there. And I would say that from The Republic of Korea is still the biggest number of cities are members of this network. We have 35 cities, Korean cities, that participate in this network. From China, we have 7 cities. One of the biggest mega cities from China participate also in this network. And it is a good opportunity, once again, to showcase what education and lifelong learning can bring to the urban development. In this particular case, once again, I would like to say that this year, Suwon is one of the most, I would say, active cities. He's received a UNESCO award, and he is also hosting a very important conference in this area. So if I move then to culture, because I do believe that culture, and I have been advocating all through the process of the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, the role of the culture. And it was not that the ambition was not to make culture as a goal, but the ambition was to show that culture is one of those vehicles, one of those tools that can ensure sustainability, and also that can unleash the creativity of the people around the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Because the debate, and Ambassador Wu knows very well, was about what and about how. And I think if what is about achieving education, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the how was also about the culture. And when I was 2 days ago here in Beijing at the celebration on Friday of the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Academy of Fine Arts, the CAFA. 100th anniversary is a long period where the Academy of Fine Arts was contributing to the development of arts and culture. And I was amazed because I had been following this last year, the expansion of the Academy and the launch of a major strategic view of the Academy, which is the East Project. It is education, arts, science, and technology. And I think this is exactly where we need the urban development creativity, the architecture, the design, the artists, everybody that is linked around the livable space in a city. And I think this is the right approach nowadays for art, technology, scientists, urban development engineers to move and to create the smart cities of tomorrow. Our contribution to UNESCO was to launch another network of UNESCO Creative Cities Network, where we have already 74 countries in 7 fields. It is crafts and folk art, it is design, it is film, it is gastronomy, literature, music, media arts, and I'm very happy to say that 2 of the capitals of China and the Republic of Korea, Seoul and Beijing, are UNESCO Creative Cities for design. Because I think by working together, the public authorities, the private sector, and also the civil society can promote this creativity among the urban developers. I do not have time, unfortunately, to dwell along on this very successful Creative Cities Network, but I think, and I want to mention the Beijing, because I can mention many examples of such cities that are drivers for innovation and creativity. And I would like to speak about Beijing just a minute, because Beijing joined this network in 2015, and nowadays Beijing is a home to more than 30,000 design students, 30 cultural and creative clusters, some 250,000 people in the design industry, bringing some 180 billion yuan per year. And this is one of the fastest growing industries, the creative industries, I think, in the whole of China. And I can mention Hangzhou and Shanghai and many other cities that are partnering in this. And that is why I believe that Beijing now is one of the leaders also for innovation, for education, and for the cultural exchange. And it is not by chance that here in Beijing again, we had our first conference of the Creative Cities, the summit, the Creative Cities Summit, which was held together on the margin, I would say back to back with the Conference on Learning Cities. And a couple of years ago, UNESCO, we took a decision to establish here, under the auspices of UNESCO, a center, the Beijing International Center for Creative and Sustainability Development, which is the only and the first such city which I hope will contribute immensely to the urban development creativity in China, but also in many parts of the world. So, in order to end, I truly believe that cities are where the battle for sustainable development will be either won or lost. And I think we cannot afford to lose it. So, thank you for this attention.